When you're in trouble, if you are the Democrats, just blame the people who are in charge of implementing the policy. Right? When you have a spike in crime in major cities around the United States, you blame the cops. After you attack the cops, which is why they stopped enforcing the laws against crime. So you tell people on the border, do not enforce the law on the border. Then they don't enforce the law on the border. Then you tell them you need to enforce the law on the border. Then they start to enforce the law on the border. And when there's blowback, you're like, God, those people who are enforcing the law, I can't believe those people. They're just terrible. So over the last 3 days, we have seen this myth that has now taken on epic proportions that Border Patrol agents are going around whipping people. They're going around actually taking whips and hitting people with whips. There is no evidence to this. None. Okay, there is not a single piece of evidence. Number one, the Border Patrol doesn't have whips. Okay, there's not a single law enforcement agency in the United States that has whips because we don't live in the slave-holding South, and we also don't live in like 13th century Europe. Okay, nobody goes around with a whip on their belt. That is not a thing. Okay, beyond that, they've now claimed that, well, that even if they weren't using whips, they're using the reins of their horses as whips. Okay, the evidence that they have been using the reins of their horses as whips is that there are pictures of them with the reins of their horses, which are long reins that you actively use in order to direct a horse. I may be no horseman, right? I'm a city Jew, but let me just tell you, even I know because I have seen a Western. Why? I mean, have these people never even seen a Western? Like they use the reins in order to hit the horse to make the horse go in a particular direction. You don't have to be some sort of Western expert to understand what the Border Patrol agents are doing. But if you take a photo in a particular position, then it makes it look as though perhaps these Border Patrol agents are actively going around just smacking the hell out of the migrants who are crossing illegally. Okay, all of this has led to a massive news cycle in which the Biden administration gets to be on the right side of history. You see, this is all about trying to struggle to find a narrative where they're on the right side. Now, they say they're not responsible for their own Border Patrol, right? So remember, the Border Patrol is run by the administration. I will also note a bit of a disconnect here. The rule apparently in the Biden administration is if you drone an innocent family in Afghanistan based on Taliban intelligence, nobody gets fired. However, if somebody takes a photo of you taking the reins of your horse and hitting the flank of your horse with the reins from a particular angle, there might be a full-scale federal investigation. So probably you should have just chosen to work in DOD and drone a bunch of kids. If you'd done that, then the Biden administration's like, whew, wow, those guys, they're doing their job. Like droning the kids, that was part of the job description. But what was not part of the job description of being a Border Patrol agent is apparently using the reins to hit your horse on its flank in a compromising angle. This is what we definitely have to avoid. And by the way, it is worth noting here that there are federal charges coming against Haitian illegal aliens for attacking U.S. pilots, biting ICE agents, according to reports. So it's not as though all of the migrants who are coming into conflict with Border Patrol and ICE are somehow all wonderful people who are all not doing anything to violate the law other than seeking a better life. There's some people who are actually like attacking Border Patrol agents. According to the Daily Wire, Haitian illegal immigrants who are in the process of being removed from the U.S. after they broke U.S. federal immigration laws allegedly attacked U.S. pilots and several ICE agents, including biting at least 2 agents. The Washington Examiner reported federal assault charges will be brought against 2 Haitian migrants after they bit federal law enforcement officials on board a deportation flight when the plane was taxiing to the runway. So, yeah, things are going fantastically well. The White House, however, is in full-scale investigate mode. It's time to, based again on a lie. Basically, there was a picture that was taken, again, of a Border Patrol agent with long reins in his hand and a migrant who's kind of beside his horse. And people are like, they're whipping the migrants. They're whipping the migrants. Okay, okay, how about some video? There are cameras there the whole time. Have we seen any video so far of them actively taking the reins and smacking migrants with the reins? Has any of that video emerged and we've missed it? Okay, there is a whole article in USA Today about Border Patrol agents on horseback whipping Haitian immigrants. And then they had to issue a correction where they said, oh, well, the El Paso Times has updated its story to reflect that it's reported had witnessed at least one Border Patrol agent on horseback swing his reins like a whip. Toward whom? The horse? And what? So the White House is in full-scale investigation mode because, again, it is all about covering ass. And if you can attack Border Patrol, you don't have to talk about the fact that your policy is a complete and utter failure, or depending on whether your policy is mass migration entering the United States, a complete and utter success. You just don't want to tell people about what your real goals are. Okay, so as I say, there were all of these reports on Twitter of Border Patrol agents whipping people. So the White House now says it is seeking more information on this. So Jen Psaki expressed her outrage at all of this. She said, oh, it's just, I'm outraged at all of this. Okay, well, then you might have actually, you know what would have solved all this? By the way, let's say for the sake of argument that there were actual abuses in which Border Patrol agents were smacking migrants with the reins that they use on the horse. You know what would have solved that? I can think of a device that would have solved this. Like, really. It's kind of old. It's kind of an ancient technology. See, what you do is you put a brick on top of another brick. Then you put like a crap load of bricks all together, and you put it up like real high, and then you build this brick structure all along the border. You might call it a wall, right? And maybe you campaign on that, and maybe Democrats then obstruct the building of that, and then they're mad when Border Patrol agents have to police the unwalled areas. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so Jen Psaki, she said that she was very upset about this. She says, I've seen some of the footage. I don't have the full context. I can't imagine what context would make that appropriate. I don't have additional details. I certainly don't have additional context. I don't think anyone seeing that footage would think it was appropriate or acceptable. Videos taken by Al Jazeera and Reuters appear to show law enforcement officers on horseback using aggressive tactics, including swinging long reins near migrants who crossed the U.S.-Mexico border near Del Rio, Texas. Near migrants. They didn't actually hit them with the reins. They had the reins near the migrants, like in the general vicinity of the migrants. I want to see any of these people honestly try to enforce the law. And then they're very angry also because there are videos of Border Patrol agents grabbing migrants who are attempting to get across the border and then just take off into the interior of Texas. So I have a question. What do they think law enforcement actually involves? Like, seriously, what do they think law enforcement involves? Do you hand people a lollipop? What exactly are they supposed to do when people take off for the interior of the United States without being processed in any way? I mean, honestly, they probably should. They should probably just let people go at this point, since the Biden administration just skipped the middleman. And the Biden administration is bringing people to a processing facility, then giving them a bus ticket to San Antonio and being like, be on your way, good sir. So you could just, if you're the Border Patrol, you could just be like, welcome in, enjoy. This land is your land, this land is my land. In an Al Jazeera video, a law enforcement officer on horseback is seen swirling long reins near a group of migrants. Shortly beforehand, another individual on horseback is heard yelling at the migrant saying, you use your women? This is why your country is bleep, because you use your women for this. So it is unclear what prompted that, why they were yelling about using the women. Is it possible that somebody was hiding behind a woman as they attempted to flee into the interior? Because you might see the outrage there. You might see why that would be unjustified. In any case, this all must be investigated. This is all, like, the big issue here is not the tens of thousands of people descending on the United States border, hundreds of thousands of people over the past few months, millions by the end of the year. None of that is the issue. The issue is the Border Patrol. The people you put in a position to actually police the border. If you can crap on them, then the left will celebrate you, even as you set up Gitmo, and even as you ship out some Haitians on flights back to Haiti. Here's Alejandro Mayorkas, the head of DHS, expressing his outrage over all of this.
I was horrified by what I saw. I'm going to let the investigation run its course, but the pictures that I observed troubled me profoundly. That defies all of the values that we seek to instill in our people. Any mistreatment or abuse of an individual defies our values and who we are and what we stand for.
Who we are and what we stand for is apparently open borders and crapping on anyone who attempts to actually enforce the law. Now, listen, if there are abuses, people should be investigated and prosecuted, unless they drone kids in Afghanistan. Then we give them a medal. But if they are abusive in the sense that they say a bad thing, or if they use their reins on their horses in the general 2-mile vicinity of people who are attempting to cross the border illegally, then obviously we have to spend our days talking about how they're using it like whips. This prompted Kamala Harris, who I thought it was her job to get the border under control. Where is she? Why isn't she policing the border? Didn't Joe Biden put her in charge of border policy? So she's an abject failure at that, like she is at everything else, but she keeps failing upwards. Here's Kamala Harris blasting Border Patrol.
What I saw depicted about those individuals on horseback treating human beings the way they were is horrible. And I fully support what is happening right now, which is a thorough investigation into exactly what is going on there. But human beings should never be treated that way. And I'm deeply troubled about it.
Okay, by the way, you know what Border Patrol is going to do? They're going to do exactly what cops everywhere have done. They're basically just going to be like, okay, all right, like, come on in. Because why would you risk being caught by a photographer swinging your reins at your horse and there's a migrant nearby? Or saying something impolitic to somebody who maybe is using their a woman or a child as some sort of shield. You're not going to be caught doing that, right? You're just going to let people go, which is, of course, what the Biden administration means to do in terms of policy. But at least the Democrats are pleasing their base. At least Joe Biden is pleasing his base Maxine Waters, who's just a nutcase, she says that what we are witnessing here, it's worse than slavery. Worse than slavery.
What the hell are we doing here? What we witness takes us back hundreds of years. What we witnessed was worse than what we witnessed in slavery. Cowboys with their reins again, whipping black people, Haitians, into the water where they're scrambling and falling down when all they're trying to do is escape from violence in their country.
Okay, so I can see a few distinctions. One, we're not enslaving any of those people. Two, all those people are attempting to enter the United States. Okay, it turns out that slaves did not actually want to be in the situation of slavery. Now you're saying that Haitians attempting to escape in the United States, who are being deterred by the Border Patrol, are the equivalent of slaves who are being held as property by fellow Americans in the most immoral act in American history. So, no on that. That's a no on that. Well, here's the good news. If you just rip on law enforcement, you never actually have to come to grips with the fact that your policy just blows. It's just a terrible policy, and everyone knows it, and the facts are on the screens, and you can try to cover it up by spending all of your time talking about how in favor of human rights you are, while reopening Gitmo, shipping people back to Haiti, and ripping on the Border Patrol agents who you have now tasked with controlling the border. That can be your policy. It's just not a very good policy. How's this for a title? Ben Shapiro Show subscriber destroys like button with clicks and logic. I'd watch that. Make it happen, gang.